Why is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asking for Allah's forgiveness? We know that prophets are free of sin. And on top of that, Allah describes him, as I told you before, as a brilliant sun, flawless. Allah Azza wa Jal will give us the reasons for which istighfar isn't just about doing a sin. Istighfar is about not doing enough. Istighfar is also about not doing enough. No human being should ever feel about themselves that they have done enough for Allah. They have always fallen short. For what Allah gave them, they can never give back. And so they ask Allah's forgiveness for their own shortcomings. You know, Ibrahim alayhi salam built the Kaaba. After all those tests, and when he was building the Kaaba, he said, وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا, please accept our tawbah. Please forgive us. Why is he asking for forgiveness? Because as I'm putting one brick of the Kaaba on top of the other, I pray that this is good enough. I pray my salah is good enough. I pray my dua is good enough. Because my dua may not be perfect, my salah may not be perfect, my qira'ah of Quran may not be perfect. Even when we do good deeds, those good deeds, are they perfect? No. And so because they're not perfect, what will complete there's a gap. And that gap can only be filled by what words? Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. Our ibadah will always be incomplete without istighfar to Allah Azza wa Jalla. We finish the salah, what's the masnoon dhikr to do? We finish the salah, the first thing we do is what? Astaghfirullah. You know, when some people become impressed, I remind myself of this, I remind you of all of you of this. When some people become impressed with their own good deeds, then they are following the footsteps of shaitan. And it doesn't matter if those are prayers, and it doesn't matter if that's hajj, and it doesn't matter if it's anything else. If you yourself are impressed with the good that you have done, you're impressed with how patient you are, you're impressed with how kind you are, you're impressed with how much you pray, you are impressed with how much you recite. When you become impressed with yourself, the door of istighfar is closed. Even if you say astaghfirullah, you don't mean it. Because you think it's perfect, you're perfect already. So those are just words, they don't mean anything. The istighfar means nothing if it's not coming from the heart. If you don't acknowledge, and I don't acknowledge that we are flawed, that what we do is not good enough. So the last thing I share with you about istighfar, not only does it cover our flaws, not only does it teach us humility, and it teaches us, profoundly it teaches us that we aren't perfect and we will always be making mistakes, and we have to admit our mistakes to Allah. By the way, on that note, it's not easy to admit your mistake to another person. Somebody says to you, hey, I didn't like what you said. What? What did I say? Huh? It was perfectly right what I said. What are you talking about? You didn't understand what I said. There's a problem with you, not with me. When somebody points out your mistake, you get defensive. I didn't make a mistake. Guess who got defensive when his mistake was pointed out? Iblis. And when you become defensive, there's no way you'll ask Allah's forgiveness. Yes, it's hard to admit our mistakes in front of people. But if you get in the habit of defending yourself every time, it will be hard for you and hard for me to admit ourselves before Allah. It'll be hard for us to say, Ya Allah, I messed up, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this. And I'm seeking genuinely your forgiveness. So being able to admit your mistake is actually a step towards istighfar. Shaitan doesn't even want us to admit it. When somebody asks for forgiveness, if I came to somebody and said, I'm sorry I said that, I made a mistake, and somebody admits their crime before a judge, somebody admits sometimes the politicians make a mistake and they have to do a press release, I'm really sorry I said that and I didn't mean to say it and please still vote for me, and Is that dignifying or is that embarrassing when they have to admit their mistake? It's embarrassing. If somebody has to admit their mistake, it's very embarrassing. And Allah Azza wa Jal, on the tongue of Nuh alayhi salam, told us, when you seek forgiveness of Allah, you are hoping for Allah not to humiliate you, but to what? To honor you. That actually our honor lies in admitting our faults before Allah and begging Allah to cover them. That's actually our honor. When we admit ourselves to any other human being, it will be humiliation. When we humiliate ourselves before Allah, that is the only honor a human being will ever have in this life. This is the power of just the words, Astaghfirullah. When we say these words, we are transforming our lives. We're opening the doors to rizq.